welcome. Tonight is March 26th. This is the RSU Withdrawal Committee meeting. We do have a quorum. We have 3 members of the original board here. Last night we had a vote in Windham that was well attended by Raymond residents, and the new funding formula passed by 167 to 22, which is quite significant. I don't think a lot of Windham people actually showed up, or seemed
some
to
showed up to 6:30.
yeah. So, but anyway, the vote was successful, and the question now is, where do we go from here? There's concern by some committee members that say, well, it's not just about the funding formula. We should have explored more options as far as the effect on children. What would a separate Raymond system look like? How much would it cost? And so I guess I'm open to feedback about what people want to do from here. I have my opinion, but I'm open.
When I first joined this committee, my intent and hope was that we would revisit the funding formula, and that it would be equitable for town of Raymond, as well as capital improvements, and the fear that we would be included in the cost of a new middle school in Windham. So both of those goals were accomplished with last night's votes. But I'm also hearing from other residents from the town of Raymond who actually were part of that 22 vote side, saying they want local control. It's a minute, opinion, but that opinion does exist out there, that they want local control, and that we should withdraw from the RSU.
So what do they mean by local control? They want their own school board. They want.
Correct. Superintendent, local,
and are they willing to pay for that?
In 6 years to close one of our schools and send our kids there.
Right. Someone said, well, it's not about the money. Well, it always comes down to the money. Mm-hmm. People are always going to make decisions based on, well, what's that going to cost me? Yeah. And I'm open. Mike?
So I had some concerns last night. I thought the funding, I think there were a lot of people approached me, and I think, as you know, I wondered if we could adjust the vote last night to do it all in 1 year, because there were people that said this is the right decision, but why does it take 3 more years? So, that's done now. I really was stuck on the whole sharing of costs, and they fixed that for the most part, and I was pretty pleased with that. Maybe to kind of second what you had to say, though, when I knocked on doors running this fall, there were a lot of people told me they wanted local control, but their kids were in Windham and they were happy with it, and why rock the boat? And I just heard that a lot. And then we had that vote, and it was such a big number. It really I wouldn't have been surprised if it had won or if it had lost, but it won so big. I was taken back personally by that, and I think my understanding of the process we're in now is, if we decided we're happy, we would disband. It's going to take till town meeting time. We'd have to do something tonight.
You have to go out to a vote.
So we have to do something. So I've thought, and maybe I've missed it, but I've thought through this whole process, I think, as you were just saying, Joe, people don't really get, and I like local control. I think I voted against this in the first place, but people don't really know what it means, or forgot superintendent, a special ed director, now an athletic director, which we didn't have in the past, but now we'd have to probably have one, and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I just wonder if we really have this time now between, if we go that route and take it to the town meeting, would people be willing to do a little more work and just let's paint a picture? We'd be just sitting around anyway. We could paint the picture. Because I think a lot of people might see those numbers and then change their mind, perhaps, even. Yeah. So, just a thought.
I just have a question about the process, what Mike just mentioned. So if we did decide that, based on the vote last night, it didn't make sense to continue, can we just clarify the process, especially since people are watching?
Yeah, we have to go out to referendum, hopefully at the town meeting vote, the one in June,
so
the election in June.
It could be at the town meeting.
Well, more than likely probably be a referendum
Okay.
at the ballot box in June. What the question is, you know, do you want Raymond Withdrawal Committee to continue, you know, seeking the process of withdrawal, or should Raymond disband the withdrawal committee? A question simple like that. So, Louisa?
I think we had a mandate in November to go ahead with this, and I think we need more investigations so that the public will know exactly what they're gonna face if they choose to vote to split from the RSU. You know, whether it's money or whether it's where the high schools that their kids are gonna possibly go to. All of those questions that have to do with coming back to Raymond with our school system.
Okay, Teresa?
When I started this petition, I know the reasons why I wanted to do it, but I also know why other people wanted to do it. I had 352 signatures on that petition. There was 1,300 people that voted, and there was a lot of different reasons as to why. And to me, putting this board together, our directive and our job was to paint a picture of what Raymond would look like standalone. And I don't feel that we have done that to the public and given it to the public. And so what's happening is if we go to a public right now to a vote, they're gonna say, wait a second, you have no information for us. You haven't given us anything. You've talked a couple times, we waited for the vote, do you know what I mean? And we saw the vote, yes, we got that cost sharing down. That's great, and Raymond was so awesome last night coming out. We also got that major debt. But on the other hand is we have not given the public, because how do we educate the public on which way to vote in a referendum when we can't give them any information on what Raymond would look like as a standalone?
Well,
So-
I mean, I think Marshall and Rolf and the finance people, you know, and I think Bob, you were involved in that, right?
Yeah, we met.
I mean, we met, we looked at
Well,
numbers.
but we
I
did,
mean,
but those
yeah.
numbers we thought were also gonna be close to the same of what we're
Yeah.
paying now. So when you look at that and you put that on the table, it does, it say, okay, well, if it's gonna be the same, let's take local control back.
Well-
And by local control, it's also meaning, let's have our own town meetings, and we don't need full-time athletic directors, we don't need full-time this.
Well, no, but law mandates that you have an athletic director.
Okay, but I mean, but you
So-
don't need, and you can also stipend somebody in on that too, possibly. Don't know, but that wouldn't be us. But us here, it wasn't our job to get that cost sharing done. What we did is we waited to see what the cost sharing plan was and what they were going to vote. What our job is, to, and this is my understanding, is to paint a picture as to what Raymond would look like standalone, so we can take it to the public. And it may not be in June, it may have to be in November, but to say this is what it would look like. Because people are going to say, wait a second, you really haven't gotten us anything. How do we know what it would be to stand alone? You know, and they voted 1,300 and some for us to find out what that was.
And I mean, you know, it's hard to determine the intent of the voter. I mean, was the intent because Wyndham was talking about this new middle school and Raymond didn't want to pay for it? Was that why they voted in such an overwhelming majority? I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
But then that's why we
But I
were
mean, the
formed.
fact is, after this new funding formula now in place, Raymond would actually be paying more now, you know,
To stand alone.
to stand alone, a lot more. And, you know,
Yeah, because we're paying part of superintendent, part
Right.
of,
right.
Then
you
we
know,
put that.
where in the future, we would have to pay all of superintendents, all of.
It seems to me what I'm hearing, one, even if the committee, if majority of the committee thought that it made the most sense to dissolve this effort, we would have to share with the public why that was the case anyway, which means we would need to provide all of that information anyway. So it strikes, I feel like we're kind of saying, we're speaking parallel words, but we're getting at the same ultimate point, which is, regardless of what any of us think, we have to go to the public with the information so that they can make a decision. Because whether we want it to pass, whether we want to, you know, get out of the RSU, and I can't speak for anybody else, or whether we don't want to, the
Right.
public is going to have to vote on
Right.
that either way.
And they don't have the information to
And-
vote on that. is what I'm
Right,
saying, yeah.
right. So, okay, I just wanted to speak that through.
Just a
brought us
clarification
the
point.
bridge.
So when you say vote, the reality is It's you three people, right?
Right.
No, but the reality is the town has to vote either way.
But I mean,
But
what
we
we're
vote
doing
whether
tonight,
us three are the ones
the
who
rest of us are
extend
here
it.
to give you guidance, but
Right.
ultimately, your three are gonna
Right.
be the deciding vote.
Correct, sorry, but I was like saying that regardless of what we were to decide, the town ultimately
Right.
has to then back up that decision with a referendum. Either way we go, is my understanding.
And on that vote last night, a lot of people were asking me, what does this vote mean? That means that we get our cost sharing down and we don't have to pay for a new middle school or new additions, that type of thing. So it's kind of like, okay, here's another big vote that will be coming around. So it's like, what do we, I have nothing to explain to them. Do you know what I mean? Because we haven't given them any information, the public, as to what Raymond would look like. And it's, to me, it's the public's vote that has to decide this, not just four of us, even though we choose whether to take it to them or not. But I think we as a board have to give them something to get, an informative vote.
In a recent article in a local paper, talks about the RSU 14 school budget being increased by a substantial amount, more than it ever has been in the recent past. That being said, I think we have to compare, we need to show some numbers of where that school budget is going to bring us, as well as what we can do on our own. And secondly, procedurally, we applied for an extension in this process. When does that extension?
September.
That goes in September.
But I think to get it on November ballot,
We would need it by, correct,
By early September.
June 1st, I think.
I can find that information. Hold on.
Oh,
If we wanted it on November ballot, we needed it earlier than
45
September.
days.
I think it was different. Let me find it.
Shoot up that $51 real quick.
Yeah, what's their increase, 4% or more than that?
4.6.
Yeah.
If everything goes through as they propose it right now. That hasn't gone through hearings or anything yet either.
Good.
I just want to clarify. We only need a vote if people want to separate, correct?
No, you need a vote anyway,
Either way.
either way.
Okay, so status quo does not continue if we
Right,
don't have a vote.
you're going to a vote, whether it's in
Okay.
June or November.
Yeah, that's
I mean, sorry, just to clarify, I found it. So in order to be on the November ballot, we would need the withdrawal plan submitted by the end of June.
So we were in between.
Well,
So we could do it before
yeah,
that.
but,
That's if
well,
you,
let's back into that a little bit. That's if the recommendation would be
To withdraw.
Withdraw.
Correct.
Because then you have to have the formal withdrawal agreement. But if you people as the committee your recommendation was that withdrawal is probably not the best thing, and that's what your recommendation is to the voters when they vote, then you don't have to have a formal withdrawal document at that time. What would happen is if that motion were to fail at that point, then you would have to go back and do that. If I'm
Yeah.
interpreting things correctly.
you're correct.
So I mean, you could actually have, if you were to get some basal information that could be given at a public forum, you could call it an interim vote to say, okay, now that you know that, do we continue or do we say, let's pull out?
What you
Or
could do in
pull.
June.
Right.
Right.
what you could do.
That's smart.
So that kind of gives you an interim step that you could do, which says, because in order to get the whole withdrawal agreement done is a lot more work than
Oh, yeah.
Getting that
getting
basic
the
information.
piece of the piece of the thing together that says, okay, if we were to withdraw, here's in theory what it would look like, and here's theoretically where that cost would be.
I think it's a really smart way to think about it.
Marshall?
He said pretty much what I was going to say. I thought that the original intent of this was to take it to the voters in November of 16, not 15.
Oh, no,
No,
it's this year.
15, yeah. And I think that's why we had a deadline, but I think, whether we want to withdraw or not, I think it's not up to us anymore. It's just
No,
up
I
to
agree
us to
with that.
take it. We're
Give
just
the
here to supply the information, yeah. Exactly, and give them what voters can do. So it doesn't matter what we consider as far as, it's just, I think we need or owe it to people, for 1,300 people to come out and vote like that.
Let me throw a couple things out here. Originally, I saw this as a three-pronged issue. The costs, the culture, like, the complaint was they never renamed the high school. And that definitely is an adult issue. It's not, kids don't care what's on their basketball shirt. And the third one was the middle school. I think we've addressed 2 out of the 3 issues. And I think one thing could be, a question could be worded at the town meeting to say, do you want to go forward if we, in the light of, we have addressed 2 of the 3 issues, or 2 of the 3 issues have been addressed.
That's hard to put into
I understand.
question.
I understand. The other thing is, I've looked at the numbers, and I've looked at the 07, 08, 08, 09 Raymond budget, and part of the problem is that cost center numbers have been changed.
Right.
So to get an apples to apples comparison would be almost impossible. So now you're into the educated guesswork part, and I would feel uncomfortable putting a number on a sheet of paper for the town to view based on that. I mean, we could come pretty close to it, but it would be very difficult to come up with a reasonable number.
I mean, in my mind, I don't think there's any data that's gonna cost you more.
I don't think so either. I don't want to put a number out there. I
Right.
have a number in mind, but looking at, we use the athletic director. I think they call it co-curricular director, which brings in the plays and all the other stuff they do. That alone is expensive. We have no control, no idea on special ed costs.
Busing, transportation.
Busing, transportation, insurances. So,
I mean, what I'm hearing is that we know it's gonna cost more to operate the school. It is now a governance issue
right.
about what do Raymond people want as far as local control, and that's governance. So they want a say in where they're gonna send their kids, you know? I mean, one of the things we're talking about on the select board now is private school tuitions, and I asked Mike to look into this insured value factor and say, we're not gonna pay that anymore. That's $40-something thousand a year we pay to these private schools that is above the cost of just tuition. And Raymond has every right to say, no, we're not gonna pay that anymore. And I think that's a significant saving.
Did you interpret the law as we have every right?
Joe's law.
The DOE didn't. They felt it was pretty fishy. They felt it was, they thought the wording was
Not good.
suspect.
Right.
Not good.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
you can just
I
say,
could put a bill in, but yeah.
and just say, we're not paying it, and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah.
Because we've always done that before we consolidated. Raymond
always
did
said-
not pay that insured value.
Well, they always
factor.
wanted Raymond kids, was my remembrance,
Right.
so we never had a problem with it.
Right, so, but I mean, there's $40-something thousand a year that the
Yeah.
RSU is charging us right now to pay that.
Now, haven't we already done that, like with a St. Dom's or a Catholic private school?
Well, we don't
We
pay
don't pay
tuition
them,
to
yeah.
any parochial school. This
Well,
is
it'd be Hebrew.
NYA, no, you can't. I mean, that's
That's the
totally
law
against the
there,
law.
yeah.
That's what Supreme Court.
This is, you know, NYA, Wayne Fleet, Hebron are really the big ones. Carabassa, I think we might have one.
There was one point we had 16 schools when I was on the school.
Yeah,
board,
it's
that we were
still
actually-
about that.
Is it really? Wow.
It's still about
At
that.
one point, Westbrook was our big,
Yeah.
kind of before our kids.
Yeah.
Westbrook was the place to go.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so how do you talk about governance to residents of Raymond and say, you know, if you want local control, it's all about the budget? I mean, so it always like I said, it always falls back on money.
But it falls back on money with a budget where they know that they have it back, they're gonna have the governance. So that's just, that's like a
At what
package deal
price?
with everything.
I mean, you know, I could go
I don't
back
know.
to this survey we had, you know,
God.
which I hate to do. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that survey said Yeah, we want local control in our schools.
That
Well,
survey said a
but-
lot, yeah.
But I don't want to pay for it.
Right.
You
The
know.
question is, what did they mean by local control? You know,
Yeah.
if, when we, and I'm not trying to split hairs here, but, when I step back to what I said in that first meeting, where I saw issues and problems, it was that the perception is we're not heard on the school board. That's what I interpret local control to mean. We are not heard there. When the decision was made, when the whole concept of the RSU was hatched, it was, let's do an RSU. Now, what was not done was an RSU. What was done was 2 schools with a common board.
Right.
Instead, the first thing that should have been done was do a full inventory of personnel, facilities, determine how best you make use of those. And that meant if you're gonna move some people from Wyndham have to come to Raymond schools, and it makes more sense for some of the people on the outline to go there, so be it. But it's not a choice. It's the fact the RSU says, this is what will be done. That's the intestinal fortitude the superintendent needed to have and the school board needed to have. It's not, we're not being listened to in that. We're being said, well, they don't want to send people there, so that's the end of the story.
We're not gonna force
No,
it.
that's not what an RSU is.
Right.
And that's what I interpret as local control. Because that says that they're going to listen and they're going to look at it from what is an RSU supposed to be and make it an RSU.
But you could also make the argument, Ralph, that there was local control. That Raymond said, no, we don't want to shut down one of our schools. And then Wyndham said, no, we don't want to send our kids to Raymond. So that local control took hold, and we're still at the same place.
Very kind.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's local control. Raymond parents showed up in force and said, do not close our middle school.
Right,
but
were
I
you,
felt
were
like
you,
they
were you
were
quoting or were
threatened.
you saying your own words there?
Who?
Were you painting a picture of what you heard people say, or was that just what you were saying?
I've heard that, but it's also what I've
Okay.
it's also what
So my
I- it's also
question-
what I said from
My
day
question
one.
to you is, was the school board not hearing Raymond people in your mind, or were people just saying, well, it's 6-3, so we're never
Well,
gonna win?
I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
People look at school board and go, hey, it's 6-3.
Yeah.
Well, you know
Yes,
what?
that's it.
We only have 4,600
I know.
people, and they have 17,000. So
But they're
there's a
not
difference.
okay with that, but that's just it. And once again, I know that, Joe, I know that, I get that, but what it does is it doesn't get through the people because it's, once again, it's the big fish eating the small fish. And present company, I hope you know this is excluded seriously on that whole school board thing.
Oh, she's enjoying this conversation.
I know, it's just because it's not,
Great, I'll have to shout some of you out. Correct some things.
No,
but
you'll have your chance. We'll let you talk.
Come back tomorrow and.
But my biggest issue is one of that is feeling like that when Raymond is not good enough, that we are a cash cow. One of the comments that the people sitting in front of me said thing is, when that gentleman stood up from Wyndham and he says it was what, unbalanced, demographically unbalanced. And the guy in front of me turns around and he goes, yep, he's sweating it out right now, and he's saying, say goodbye to his cash cow, is what he said. But you look at it, it's, they don't feel like they're, Raymond people are good enough, that Wyndham's better than them. They don't feel like they are being heard. No, you got it.
We gotta be careful with that.
No,
Yeah.
but listen, this is what they're saying, Mike. So do you know what? Just
I
because
know,
one
but
person says
there's-
it, that's why they signed a
Was
petition.
there 25,000 residents in these two towns?
Yeah.
I know,
If
but I am just-
100 say that, it's not even 1%.
Right.
But you know what? But you can't say that. That's not fair because these are the people that took the time to sign the petition.
And they all
voice-
thought that Wyndham was crooked.
No, I never said that Wyndham was crooked. I never said that.
Well,
Seriously.
Okay.
No, so don't put words in there either because I never said that.
all right.
Because
Keep talking.
what I said that what happens is they're not being heard, okay, and they don't have a say, and that they do feel like we're the evil stepsisters is how people feel. They really do. And never once did I ever
Okay.
say Wyndham was crooked.
Okay, sorry.
But what
I
about?
signed your petition, and I don't feel that way about any of it.
But
I
on
do
the
sign
other
your
hand, is
petition.
too, is people are all upset too, is we have a perfectly good school up here that's not getting filled. And so meanwhile, they're saying, wait a second, we're good enough to be shipped down, and this is a big issue in Raymond, is we're good enough to be shipped down there, but we're not good enough to have people come up here and ship up here. So you got to think 1,300 people came out and voted, you know, and they voted, and for whatever reasons people voted, it's important to them. It really is. But I think we need to put it on the table for whatever, 1%, 1,000%. I think we just need to have something that people can look at to say, okay, they did their work, they gave it to us. All right, let's stay with them. See it in black and white is what it is. And if it's
Those 1,300 people who voted, how many of them looked at that Wyndham Middle School and said, that's gonna cost me a lot of money, and it's not gonna be in Raymond?
that wasn't allowed on the ballot, so it wasn't asked.
It wasn't asked that way, but, I mean, I would guess that there are a lot of people who had that in their mind when they went to vote.
And that's exactly why I think we should have, you know, almost that two-step that says, okay, let's get a let's
is where we
do
are.
a,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
do a
That's what I was
slight,
thinking too.
slight thing. Get a gut check at the
June.
at the
But we ought to have a public hearing.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
a
we definitely
public hearing, then you can do a non-binding resolution or referendum there to to see where people stand.
I think it ought to be separate from town meeting. That you
Because
have
if they cut,
Yeah.
a
if
public hearing in May, you lay out the facts to people, and then you hopefully have a vote in June, whether or not to
Yeah.
continue.
But what are the facts, Joe? That's what I want. That's what I'm saying. They need to see that. And what are you going to say are the facts? That you
It's gonna
think-
cost you a lot.
No,
I'm
that
not-
you think it's going to cost more.
No,
We
I
haven't
know
seen
it's
that.
gonna cost a
No,
lot more.
Joe.
I know for a fact it's gonna cost you a lot more. That is not even a
You
dispute
should have
in
sat
my
in between
mind.
us. You really should.
Not even a dispute in my mind. The question on governance, how do you wanna fix it? You don't have the population to fix it. You know, have a lot of babies. We may catch up at 18 years from now. I mean, you know, how do you fix these things? You
Oh my
can't.
God. You're
Louise?
so frustrated.
My thought on this is to start with some numbers. I mean, granted, the first year is gonna be really high because of school buses and all the things that we no longer own that are in the RSU. I doubt that they're gonna give us back any of that
No,
stuff.
there is a splitting.
Well,
of-
there- yeah.
there's
You
a
have to
process.
negotiate everything
Right.
back.
Well, that would be a help.
we get all
But-
It's like a
but-
divorce.
When we get all the old ones
So
back.
we have no
I
need
want
for
a mower back.
But if we couldn't put together even using their template, see if we couldn't come up with some estimates of what it would cost. I think the public needs to know how much more it will be. You know, and somehow we've gotta have a guesstimate
Well,
to
we-
show them.
We started down that path.
Well, and that's a key word, a guess, because it's
Yeah.
gonna be a
But I
pure
mean,
guess.
And I
You can
think
bring
it's-
in cost of living and escalators and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
I think
and
as
it's-
long as they understand that.
Well, I mean, what if we were, if we were gonna do this for real, we'd make a budget. So why can't we pretend we're doing it for real? Make a budget.
Yep.
I think that's what the public wants to see.
Yeah.
So they can make it
And that's why I was
knowledgeable.
trying to say a while ago, if we put those numbers out, I think I agree with you. I like local control. I think people will be sticker shock.
And how do you address the governance issue? I mean, what do you tell them?
Yeah.
You can have your own school board, which has a cost to it, by the way, when you have your own school board, and you can control everything.
Yeah.
Is that, I
No,
mean, what other issues do you
we
have?
have
Just
before.
before
do
town
value that,
meetings,
yeah.
it'll be big again.
Not at all.
Well, you'd have to have your own school board if you
Yeah.
separated anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not, you're not trying to say, have a parallel school board as a.
I mean, and who do you contract with? You have to have a contract school when you separate. So who is that gonna be? And who's gonna want those
Oh,
Raymond
yeah.
kids?
That's right.
I mean, that's a job I'd like to see. I'd love to call the different districts and see whether they'd be willing to take Raymond kids.
Well,
See how much it's gonna cost.
Gray is fault, Poland's fault. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of unfair, but I have no doubt Wyndham would want our kids.
Yeah, of course they would.
We kind of
They
have it
need
both
the
ways.
revenue.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be at risk of having kids on the side of the street.
And Wyndham would also want Raymond to continue paying debt service in the high school.
Are we
Yeah.
no longer bound to do that?
No,
If you
yeah.
pull
We
out.
are.
Yeah.
We can pull out?
Well,
you
you
did.
pull out and become your own district again,
Yeah.
you don't have to pay debt service at the high school.
Oh.
But Wyndham will probably make that a stipulation of you sending kids there,
I mean, we're still gonna pay tuition,
and you're still gonna pay tuition.
yeah.
So,
You're still gonna pay tuition, you still pay the back charges on special ed and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, just by virtue of having.
and you have to
just
have
by
your own
virtue of-
special ed
correct.
department at that point.
Just by virtue of having tuition student doesn't absolve you of other costs.
I think the hard thing is what Teresa's bringing, having the school board, it's hard to quantify. You know, I'm on the education committee in Augusta, and I can't tell you how often we talk about some issue, and then they start handing the spreadsheets out. So someone in Presque Isle's looking at what's going to do, and it's hard not to, vote
Look
that
at the
way.
money. Ah.
Yeah, but in this case, how do you quantify, or probably everybody here would like to have local control, but what's the balance?
And what are the course offerings? Are you gonna have the same course offerings that you have now?
And we talked about that at our finance meeting. What's the curriculum gonna be?
Right.
What programs are you gonna offer above
Are
essential
we only gonna
programs
do
and
reading,
services?
writing, and arithmetic?
Payroll
and-
suck is what it
And
is.
maybe
Nothing else?
French.
Yeah, Spanish.
Ooh, see.
But the fact is, we did have that, 8 years ago,
Had what?
our own school system.
Yeah.
With our own Spanish teachers,
Mm-hmm.
08, 09 was the last.
Mine was last year.
Was the last
It
time.
sounds to me like we've come to a place where most of us, I don't want to put words in his mouth, where we all where most of us think that we should do a little bit more due diligence and see what those numbers will be, so that when we make a recommendation to the town, we have something real with which to make that recommendation. I heard from Joe that it makes sense probably to do a public hearing in May and present that, and maybe with those numbers, a recommendation from the board, from us, to either A, continue, or B, to not continue, and then to put it on the ballot in June. Is that kind of the next steps that
You
we're-
put that so politically nice and all that thing back together.
That's about it.
That's what we have to do. The facts.
So
So,
we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
just
we
people
are.
are emotional. So we just tie it all
I'm not
back in.
emotional at all.
Well, no, sorry, that was the wrong word to use. People are enthused.
I'm not enthused.
Oh my God.
I'm just-
He
Not
went
banging
to
the
say-
table.
I'm
I
just,
should
I'm just
stop
sitting
while
here
I was
going,
ahead.
oh, more meetings, all
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah.
I should stop.
You're the one who wanted to have a meeting every week.
Well,
Well,
I mean, I guess the question would be, if you're at, if you have a budget that's at the 95th percentile of probability, is that adequate? Or do you need it to be at 99 or 100% to do an adequate presentation?
I mean-
Because there's a big difference between those two numbers.
you had contacts from other towns that withdrew. Can you get a hold of them to find out how much more did it cost you in your first year when you withdrew?
How much what? I'm sorry.
How much more did it
How much
cost
did it
them?
cost you?
Like Saco.
Okay.
How much
Yeah.
more did it cost them when they withdrew
Yeah,
from the RSU?
and every town has gone up when they withdrew,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt.
And pull out my file and bring it up, call them.
Yep.
I mean, I can tell you, if you want to go back into deep history, when we had the study committee for at that point it was middle school, but then turned into the elementary school, but, I ran numbers through on that. And, the first statement I made when we had the first public hearing on that was, it will cost us more to have our own rather than tuitioning out, which is what we had been doing at that point on the middle school. And my recollection, I'd have to see if I could find some of the old records, but that was back in what, about
96.
94, 95 timeframe.
Yeah.
My recollection is it was about 20% more for us to have our own middle school as opposed to
Yeah.
tuitioning out, which we were doing at that time.
And that won like 75%, didn't it? 65, 75, we passed it when we finally voted.
But, you also have to factor in there too, there was more of an emotional tie to sending out fourth and fifth graders
Right.
than sending out
Right.
high school kids.
Back then it was 6 through 8 we would tuition out, because my kids were part of that, and so were yours.
Pat missed it though. Pat missed it by 1 year.
Yeah.
It opened the next year.
Right. All right. I guess we need to fine tune some numbers. How do we talk about governance? I mean, if people don't, they want this local control issue, how do you talk about it? I mean, how do you explore that and explain to someone, well, here's, if it's not the numbers, because I keep hearing it's not all about the numbers. Well, it's pretty simple to say you're gonna have a 5-member school committee and they're gonna run it. What else is there? You know, and when people say, what's the effect on the kids? All right, they're not riding a bus for an hour anymore. But my kids, when they were going to Raymond, were riding the bus for an hour. So, I mean, you know, so, and we lived on the Egypt Road, you know, 2 miles from here, and they were still riding the bus for an hour.
You realize that this is all adults anyways, everything that's going, it's not the kids at all. And you know, and I think what happens is some of those meetings that they had as far as sending people over from Sebago Heights, they made it all about my kids' friends, and they're going to miss their kids' friends, and they're going to be felt left out. And it's not. It's all adults here. So I think no matter what, whatever, we stay together, we don't, the kids are still going to have good educations. They really are. Do you know what I mean? Because one, if we split, Raymond's not going to let them not get a good education. That's just the parents and the people in this town. But as far as, you know, that thing about, you know, what's good for the kids, I think they're okay either way. I really do, because I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot, you know, because they're still going to be doing sports the same way that they're doing down there. And I really think the other thing too is I think Wyndham is still going to be a big part of a lot of these kids' lives. You know, I really do. And and if they're not, then I think that it's become more of a personal thing. But I don't think they're that way. I think that it's going to be, you know what, we need the kids, we like the kids mingle, all that stuff together. So I think it's the adults that have issues.
I mean, I like the idea of all our kids going to one school. Honestly, I think back when my kids were little, and, you know, we're talking a long time ago, you know, the youngest one's going to be 30 now, so just, you know.
He's really dating himself.
When those kids had the option to go to Westbrook, Gray, Wyndham, and Poland,
I would say Poland, yeah.
they all separated.
NYA.
And they lost touch with each other. And I think one of the best things for Raymond kids is to stay together, to go to high school together, and be in the same class. That's just me, and because I saw it with my kids, they lost contact with friends that they had who went to different schools.
But not always, because my kids have my sister. Oh my gosh, my daughter has one in every school that they keep, and they get together and they have lunch and they talk. But that child also has control over where they're going, and they have a say over where they're going by having choice, which is cool. You know what I mean? Well, it all depends on the tuition that school is offering too. But you know, when they like the Poland atmosphere, or they like the Gray atmosphere because something's going on, or you know, they like it Wyndham because the sports and everything's down that way too.
I mean, the majority of our kids are going to Wyndham. I mean, you know, no doubt about that, right? I mean, it's something like
I remember moving to Raymond, but in part, my wife's an educator, in part because Raymond had choice, and that sounded so good. Yeah. And then I remember 6th grade, we didn't have the middle school yet. Right. It was a stressful year.
Yeah. Trying to figure out where
we don't want to screw this up for Maggie, and it worked out well, but it was stressful as a parent. I didn't want to screw it up.
That's why we're here.
What's that?
That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons
choice.
why we're here. We're looking at all the towns around here. It's geographically makes sense for us, and Raymond does choice because we don't know what our kid's going to be like in 13 years. You know?
Saw him the other night.
He's a pistol right now.
For those of you who got a preview, I apologize.
You know,
Yeah.
I may be the only person at this table that is now seeing kids I went to school with, because I live in Raymond and I have since I was 5 years old. I don't think the issue of losing friends in 6th grade is as big a problem as we adults are looking at it as, because how many of us here, other than me, even know one person I went to grammar school with? Not many.
I just went and visited a friend in Florida who I grew up with, you know, since I was 7 years old, and we're still in contact. So.
But I think it's rare. I think it's rare. So I'm not sure that taking them out of Raymond to go to high school, possibly even middle school, but I'm hoping not middle school. I'd rather see them go as a 14-year-old than a 13-year-old. is that big a deal as far as friendships are concerned, because you make new ones where you go. Every military kid knows that.
You know, I think a demographic study should be part of this, because at some point, are you gonna have enough kids to support what you're doing
Up here?
up here?
Yep.
Well, doesn't the state have that? Don't they still do that, Mike?
Yeah.
I'll check, I'll check this.
I mean,
Projections.
in 94, 95, when we were building that elementary school, we were projected to have 900 kids by the year.
Oh, yeah, but we got, I mean,
2005.
we had,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where we
That
got that from, but we.
Study
It
did
was
pretty
that
well for a
place in
while, and then
Colorado.
all of a sudden it kind of petered out.
It was that place in Colorado.
It worked up until we built the middle school almost, didn't it?
But I mean.
Yeah.
but
And then it went boom.
I mean, and then
the other way.
after that, it started
Yeah.
to skew.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, even from the standpoint of when the state.
That's a long
when
time.
the
It's like
state
10 years.
goes and looks at
Yeah.
whether they're gonna fund a high school or whatever, there's something that they're using too that's doing a projection, because they can only project, what is it, 5 years growth?
Right.
Is all they'll approve
Right.
for that much additional if they can project that. So there's something that someplace it
Yeah,
has
this
that
is
data.
during the 90s and everything was booming. Growth in Raymond
Yeah.
was like the second fastest in the state.
We were adding classes.
Yeah, and all these
We're adding
kids
classes.
we're gonna have all these kids, and then boom, it just dropped, and now we got
Yeah.
500 and something kids. Yeah, so I mean, you know, so we're going the opposite direction. Now, you're gonna have small class sizes here, if you run your own little place here. We have small class sizes right now, yet we're gonna, you know, when do you say we can't afford that teacher anymore? And when does that class size begin to grow?
That's what the school board would do.
Yeah.
But, okay, you mentioned as far as can we pay for this up here, but that's another option that we would have as Raymond to say, okay, let's take a wing of that, shut it down, because I know it's been talked about before, and put something else in there. Do you know what I mean? Like adult education classes, library in there, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You got a whole wing that can be combined together, paid for in the town, but you're not paying for a building that's partly used.
No, but you would have to renovate for the tune of $1.5 million,
That would be in,
maybe $2 million. You know, and that would be part of, so do you say that's not part of your educational costs at that point, because it's gonna become a town facility? Somebody's gotta pay for it.
the town's gonna
So-
pay for whether it's educational or town anyways.
Yeah.
They're paying for both.
I mean, you can go as wide as you want with this thing, because there's an offshoot on everything you can
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah.
So, and that's how do you come up with those definite numbers?
Well, I think you painted a pretty big picture there.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring it back into what's it gonna cost to run the elementary school, what's it gonna cost to run Jordan Small, how much is it gonna cost to send the kids to high school, and the overlay for system-wide stuff.
Yeah.
And bring it and exclude all this conversation that we just had. I don't think we can do it any other
Well,
way.
that's that, and that's why,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, you know, if we were at that 95 confidence level, is that gonna be sufficient? Or do we have to get to, you know, because it doesn't, you know, quite frankly, it doesn't, I don't see the value of investing the time to get it to the 100% level if 95 is gonna tell you that, you know, economically it's not feasible and therefore it's gonna get rejected anyway.
And to me, it would make sense to take the 08-09 budget, the one that was just before the consolidation, and reframe that into 15, 16.
Today's numbers.
Now you've got apples and apples. This is what it looks like.
I can also call somebody that was doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? She had offered to be on the board and help out, and she said that we can call on her if we need questions too.
I think you need to look at it as a per pupil cost also.
Well, that's, the
Because
state
back
does
in
that.
08 and 09, we had a lot more kids than we do in 15 and 16.
Did you get the
Well, that's where you get
279?
into staffing levels.
Right.
Marshall, did you get the 279 I sent?
I have the 279s, and, you know, I
The
have
one that's
trouble
separate?
reading the 279s. I just, the state does it their way, and
Right.
sometimes that's not
I
appropriate.
mean, a lot of this
for
stuff
our
you
way.
have to extrapolate.
Exactly, and that's where you get into
That's
trouble.
20%
That's where you get
worth
into
it.
guess.
But I think you're gonna have an easier time presenting the numbers. It's again, this local control thing, and that's the value of having the public hearing, I guess, or whatever we call it.
Yeah.
But then, do you get people there?
Right.
So,
I think
but-
we can get them there.
Well,
you know.
quite frankly, doesn't that say
We did all right
something
last
if you
night.
don't?
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
Somewhere, who mentioned athletic director is
I did.
required? Okay, so.
I'm
somewhere-
assuming because we got banners in our seal.
Well, no, the question
So-
is, somewhere, is there written, we have to have A, B, C, D,
When you
E,
guys said,
F
yeah, I
in
don't
school.
know that we
Well,
have to
I don't know
have
where you
one.
got
You
that
have to
because
have an
we had
athletic
somebody that had a
director.
Who
stipend
says
that
that?
did that.
I'll find out, but I don't know.
Jack Fitch
Because
is
that
here
would be
for
a
this
key
end,
part.
Right,
right?
We
he's
didn't
the
know
athletic
that.
director.
Right, but you wouldn't need to
I'll
hire
point you
on a
in.
full-time like a
No,
Rich
I
Drummond down in
no,
Raymond.
I'm-
I mean,
I'm-
Wyndham.
What
God.
is
Because
the
you're only going
staffing
up to middle
requirement
school.
for school?
Right,
Do we
so,
have to have a guidance counselor?
Yes.
so Marshall, did you
I
hear that?
think so,
Yeah.
but-
But it's
find
based on, we can go into
Yeah.
EPS value as far
Yeah.
as the numbers
How
as
many
to how
kids
much we
you
have to have
yeah.
too. And
So how
we
many
don't-
guidance counselors? by
we
how
don't
many
need a
kids?
full-
Well, I
Full-time
know,
principal
you have to have one
superintendent.
nurse for 800
You know what I
kids,
mean?
I've been
We
through
can-
all that.
Get them on that.
I'll find that out.
That's it.
Okay,
Which I disagree with, by the way. I think we should have a nurse in each building, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
Most schools don't.
That was always a fight when I was on the
Yeah, I
school
remember.
board.
I
Yeah,
remember.
and only because you got kids that, hey, I found out real quick with the old EpiPen thing, when I didn't realize I was allergic to something, how fast your tongue swells, do you know what I mean? So, oh yeah, real quick. So,
Do you remember what you ate?
it was sulfa.
Marshall's cookies.
One little white pill, and I was like, whoa, yeah.
Marshall's cookies.
Wasn't my cookies.
Oh,
It was one of the Marshall's cookies.
I was gonna
That's why they don't,
for the
that's why they don't let
whatever
them
you
come from the yard sale anymore.
I was gonna bring some tonight, but I figured.
I'm sorry, what was that again, Joe? I don't,
right.
thank you.
Where are we at?
That's what I was gonna ask. Is everyone satisfied that we're gonna continue to at least explore some things?
Is this the finance subcommittee that we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, what else is there? Can someone tell me what else there is?
But,
There's one, sorry,
Okay, so you go.
Curriculum.
one thing that I've been
I guess.
thinking about, especially given the vote last night, is, and not to backtrack from the good work that has happened here, but moving forward, how would we say, it strikes me that, I don't know, there almost needs to be an ongoing subcommittee of Raymond residents that are in charge, that, you know, it's not a school board, but it's liaising with the school board or something, so that they know that, and they're keeping everybody aware. And I don't know what the answer is for that, but that's what's been, a steering committee or something, because it strikes me, and I was not at all part of the conversation, so all I know is what I've heard back and forth in this room, is that some of these conversations, they didn't, or they were tried to have been had and it didn't work. But if there was a process so that some of these conversations could have happened before we started the withdrawal process,
Yeah.
how does that, you know, we should think about that moving forward, whether we withdraw or not, so that we're not starting a withdrawal process every time there's a major
Well,
I was
issue.
gonna say, I think
yeah, go ahead.
something that I wanted to say was what happens if we decide, you know, everything's fine and dandy, we're happy with the new cost sharing, but then the middle school issue comes up again.
Right.
That was
Are you
resolved
gonna
last night,
have a
right?
big outcry again of people saying, well, now we wanna withdraw again? So are we gonna be back in this room in 2 years?
You may be.
Going over the
That's-
same
that-
issue?
And is
You
there a
have
way-
that right, yeah.
That was resolved last night, though.
But
wasn't it?
that wouldn't, you wouldn't have the same financial commitment going forward as we would have had back then. Because now, if the decision was made to build one in Wyndham, Wyndham would bear the cost of it.
You might pay to send kids there.
You know,
Even if-
where we would bear some cost would be if we
Send our kids.
sent kids there, and it would be as a prorated proportion.
Oh, so we could decide whether to send our children to this new middle school? They
Yes.
couldn't force us into a consolidated
Well, I
middle
mean,
school.
think of the theory
If they
that,
close Jordan Small.
right, they would have
Of
to
the
close this place.
But the only way
Or
they can-
get, or incentivize you, because most people would want their kids to go to a brand new school, I would think. I don't know, but I would think you want that nice shiny wall and nice new desks, right? So, when you only have, 50 kids in this middle school, because everybody's going to the new one, what option do you have, except to close this?
Well, but just so you know,
Hang on a minute.
and one of the things is if they close it, they can't close it without the vote of the Raymond
Town
people.
right.
But I also think connected to that is if we choose and we vote to keep it open, we have to
We
bear
have
the
to pay for
cost
it, right.
of paying for it. Okay, so I was right.
Not that I want to digress any, but Mike and I had a conversation last night, and state funding and incentives to, for consolidation of schools or
Yeah.
RSUs.
It's all theory right now,
communities,
but-
it's
yeah.
theory, okay, sorry.
What he's referring to is the commissioner, maybe the governor, I guess, there's a building, whatever they call it, there's monies for building projects, we got one here, and there's a list, I looked at it today because my wife's building is on it, but 72 strong. So there's talk in the governor's office of having a second list, and I don't know if that robs from the first, but anyway, for consolidations. So as an example, I guess they're really pushing on Lewiston and Auburn to consolidate.
Right.
And the state would build them a high school if they would consolidate.
Because they both need a new high school.
But look at the
Yeah.
incentives that they did
Mostly
years
Auburn,
ago.
but-
I mean, actually, they threatened us. They threatened us with sanctions and
Right.
lack of funding and everything else to do it.
Right.
And so we tried it, and look what happened. So it's,
Too much lack of funding, we only got 200,000 anyway.
Yeah.
So you can't, I mean, you can't,
Right.
oh, it was the penalty
Right,
that was
walk
gonna
away
kick
from
in,
it.
it wasn't the fund, it wasn't funding.
yeah.
You know, Joe, you asked a question a few minutes ago, so what else we gotta do here? Here's I'll just tell real quick, when we went to Poland Open, if you don't know, Poland got the they used to call it the death penalty. Auburn said, we don't have room for you, you have 2 years, and they were in a panic. And I remember when I was on the school board, they came here asking and you know, we weren't at a place to do that, and I just remember seeing the fear. So they figured out what they were doing, the state helped them out, they built that school, and I'm blanking on why I was telling the story. Shoot.
About
I
taking our
talk
high
too
school
much.
kids.
What's that?
You're going about where our high school kids go and have a
Yeah.
crash.
Well, when I was on the Raymond School Board back in 1990, we were approached by Poland Minot
Yeah, which
Mechanic
is
Falls
the district now, yeah.
to build a high school with them. And at the time, we said no, because we would have picked
Oh,
up the
I know.
entire share
Yeah.
of most of that cost.
So I know it, so
Yeah.
this is actually pretty relevant. So what happened was, so they actually had a year to study best practices. They hired 3 officials, and they looked over the world, and they built this program. They just didn't tell anybody. So school opens, report cards don't have A's, B's, and C's on them anymore. I mean, literally riots in the street of Poland. I'm almost not kidding. And what the school ended up having to do, I mean, people were really mad. People were like, how, my kid's not going to college the way you're doing this. And they literally had to go through this education process. They were having a meeting every week. The auditorium was filled every week, and they brainstormed, here are all the issues, and they started every week on Wednesdays having a meeting with 500 people there, and okay, report cards. All the teachers sent to their college. All their colleges said, yeah, I can read that report card. So over time, they started, so I guess my suggestion is, maybe that's what we can do, is we can start doing some marketing on this issue, and whatever that looks like, start putting stuff in the paper, whatever that looks like. I mean, I think the numbers are gonna be the easiest part of this.
So
It's what local control looks like.
what about a meeting in April where we invite the townspeople
So we
and
just
say, all right, here's where we're at. What would you like us to do?
Perfect.
You know?
It opens it up
Government
early.
actually run by the people.
Yeah, how about that?
Isn't
I
that
like it.
amazing?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, does that make sense to people?
That's right.
It sounds like a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Yes, it is.
Because what happens is we're gonna know right off which way we wanna go with it, you know what I mean, which way, they wanna go with it, because it's,
Yeah.
How would it be?
But maybe some
if-
marketing, I mean, I don't, we got some writers, right? You're a writer.
How would it be if we had, I don't do Facebook, something like a Facebook page where people can go in and make comments and desires and what they want us to look at and,
We could certainly do that. I'll just say Facebook's, I mean, kind of a
We
free
have a
for all.
Facebook page.
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, something on that idea.
But something, I mean, we could certainly do that. That can be one way people can communicate that as well.
I like the idea, at least bringing townspeople in, maybe having preliminary numbers. Yeah.
57,
if you
58
offer, if
people
you
like
offer
our Facebook
coffee
page.
and Marshall's cookies,
What-
it'll bring everybody.
When in April are you talking?
An EpiPen.
It's probably
30th at
17 for this kid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is that?
I think, when in April are you talking about?
Middle of April sometime?
Can't do, is there a school
Remember,
vacation
you
in
got,
April?
There is,
Right.
it's like the 20th or so.
How about like the 21st or,
Let me look up school vacation.
When's school-
Oh, is that
sounds
school
like
vacation?
vacation week, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
No, when's Patriots Day?
It'll be that Monday, whatever the Monday is.
13th, isn't it? Or is it the 20th?
It's always the first, Patriots Day is always the first day, I think of. It's the 20th.
It's
Is-
It looks like, I'm guessing the 20th.
third Monday.
Yeah,
Monday of April,
Patriots
right?
Day is,
Yeah, that's the
that's
20th.
school
All right,
vacation week.
so how about like a month from now? Like the 28th?
I can do that.
Tuesday?
Is this,
Yeah.
is this
Tuesday work?
venue suitable for that type of invitation?
We may need a larger place. you
Yeah,
think?
that's what
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
suggesting.
definitely.
How about like the
Is-
Jordan
Joe's house.
School or the Raymond Elementary School
Yeah.
auditorium?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody needs to get in touch with the school.
I can do that. My only question is, I assume because this is the town board, they'll allow us to be there. They've made a new ruling that if
Oh, yeah, you had to have liability insurance.
$400,000, yeah.
Yeah.
But I suspect we're
I
connected
think
to the
we're, I
town,
think the town
therefore.
board's okay though.
Yeah.
I asked
Town
them
has
about it, so.
$400,000.
What time you end this meeting?
28th?
Yeah,
Tuesday?
yeah, 28th.
6:30?
Is Tuesday a good day for everybody? Or you rather do a Monday or
I don't have my calendar.
Tuesday
with me.
works,
I
generally.
can't tell.
Tuesday? Okay, 28th.
I'd say
Um,
6.
I don't think
6:30?
we're done on the
Sounds
13th.
good.
Just because
You
you're
wanna
not too
make
early,
it in
people
time
get
for
home.
people to get home from school, from work?
Yep.
I had
Well,
some
if you
complaints
publicize
that
it far
vote
enough,
last night was too early.
Well, yeah, but that was
What do
at
we
6
call
o'clock.
this? Like, how do we tell people, like?
An information
public-
meeting.
An informational
All
meeting.
information.
We
Inf-
want public input.
Information and input.
Get out there, yeah.
The board needs input from people as to where they want to go, how they want to do this. And
And
then
we're
they're
saying
saying, not us.
Raymond Elementary School, all right?
Tuesday's conservation.
Raymond?
No, we won't be here.
We won't be here, we'll be at the elementary.
That's why I
school.
didn't ask you, Dominic, but thank you.
Sorry.
Will it need to be
I'm just looking at the
televised?
schedule I saw right
We're gonna try the Jordan Small. We got
Yeah,
baseball.
Jordan Small or Raymond Elementary, we can use the cafeteria or the gym
Well,
at
I
Jordan
would-
Small.
I like the Raymond Elementary School where the school board meets, right? That's where you meet?
We've done both.
I would do
Yeah.
Raymond Elementary because they have baseball inside the gyms usually at Jordan Small.
Okay.
We also have it set up for live over here though, just let you know.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
we don't have across the street.
okay.
Oh, so you can do it here, live,
Live.
in the cafeteria there?
Yep, either in the cafeteria or in the gymnasium.
All right, well-
We'll reach both.
You wanna figure out where you wanna be, or?
But the
Can they do
cafeteria
both?
is only a
Can
little
they
bit
do
bigger
both that
than
night?
I
this.
know.
The gym won't
There's
bother
two
us.
meetings that
I
night.
think they limit it to 50 or 60 at the
Fire
cafeteria.
code.
Doesn't the
Really?
walls open up with
No.
the cafeteria?
No.
Not the cafeteria.
Just a little bit, but not
Experience
much.
really have more than 50 or
I
60.
thought it opened up into
They
the-
have a big play going on too.
Why don't we just
Oh,
go
yeah,
for
I
the
was gonna
gym
say
and
the
call it
play
good?
area. I thought it
Yeah,
opened
let's
up-
do the Raymond Elementary School and figure it out from there.
We'll just have to record it and I'll play it back.
Yeah,
And
All right, so-
6:30?
6:30 on 28th. Now, when do we wanna meet again with some numbers? And look at numbers again?
28th at 6.
No, no.
Well, I guess this question, do we want the numbers done by the April
Yes.
28th meeting?
Yes, cause that's gonna be a question, no
The
doubt.
rough number, the 95%.
Marshall does all the numbers anyway, so he can bring them all for us.
How about like the 14th
April, right?
of April?
I don't, 14th
We
is the
get
last budget meeting.
on the
Oh.
15th.
On the 13th?
I'm out of town until the 15th,
Us
but
too?
you don't need me here.
I'll just you guys. But we're meeting
16th?
April
I could be
1st.
at the
You
15th.
guys are meeting on April Fool's Day, which is appropriate
You guys
for you
talking
to
about
be.
April or?
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
Well, the 13th and the 15th, take it out.
And what about the 14th?
Just good for the 14th.
14th?
Where, the,
I won't be here,
is
but
that our
it's okay.
budget meeting night?
No, it's
14th at 6:30 again?
15th would be better if we could do the Wednesday instead.
That
It
may
wouldn't
be a,
be here.
Well, we can't
that's a
hear.
meeting here.
Yeah, you just have to move, I mean.
Who's here?
Probably planning
Well,
board.
the 15th is RSU, 13th is budget finance.
When,
You
planning
wanna
board?
make, well,
Is it
we,
gonna be all of you guys, basically, or
Yes.
more?
yeah.
Which is, I get something on the 14th, so.
How
What
about a
about the
Thursday?
16th?
What about 16th?
I can do that.
Yeah.
16th's good.
16th? All right.
Thursday?
16th at 6:30 again?
Yep,
Here?
yep.
Joe, do you want me to arrange for that, the cafeteria? I mean, the RES?
If you're willing to do that,
I
that'd be
will do
great.
that. I will
Yeah.
do that.
So once we have confirmation of location, can you email me so that we can start?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, letting people know somehow.
Okay, now, do you guys want to advertise this public input?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's why we're having it. It's not for us, it's for the public to come
We can
and
do that on the town website
give us
as well, right?
feedback.
We can, oh gosh, do you see how I like cut and paste on all the different websites? Like the PTO is huge to hit on their website and their Facebook page that I got. We got the RSU Withdrawal, we have just Raymond Schools, we've got quite a few different websites we can put on, plus hit the newspapers, plus I don't know if it should go on the, some people heard about it because Randy, it was in the newspaper at 6:30, the Portland Press, that this meeting last night was on. And so Randy put it on the listserv that, you know, people are confused as to where it is. It's not in Raymond, it's in Wyndham. And that was a huge one. So I don't know if that's even appropriate to do that or to get public input.
I mean, you know, I think the school board ought to advertise it also and let people know we're having this meeting.
I would
So.
put it out on the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just gotta be careful, you don't have a staff writer for Portland Press Herald.
I know.
Oh, Jesus.
Because they had an article in today's paper, and there were 3 errors in that
Yeah.
article today.
Yeah.
At least 3 errors.
On the whole thing?
Well, if you saw it was
Show
staff,
hands was one of them.
it was staff reports. It wasn't an actual person who was
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And they made a phone call, spoke to the janitor and said, hey,
Yeah.
what happened last night?
There was a reporter there,
The
wasn't there?
Pingree Press Herald.
Ezra was there from the Lake region.
Yeah.
He was the only one I saw.
Oh, Walter Lunt was there for the Wyndham Eagle.
Oh, was
Michelle
he?
Libby was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Diana, you want to add anything
I want to tread on some dangerous ground first.
Oh.
before Diana
Before
speaks?
her dangerous ground. I'm
Okay.
thinking, what else could be dangerous?
It would be a help to us if we could contact some school staff. Do you think that we can do that with safety for the school staff?
I
Well,
would
Janet
want-
Cummings is supposed to be on this board.
She tried calling me, and I was on the other line, and I didn't have time to call her back.
Do you know?
I think
feedback?
what the appropriate thing would be to do is say, we need some numbers, we need some information, send an email to Sandy Prince,
Right.
and get his permission first, and just explain what we're looking to do.
Yeah, because I don't want to jeopardize any particular
Exactly.
staff.
No, you'd have to go through Sandy.
Can we,
Send him
Are
an email?
you?
Or should it come to me and I send it to Dawn?
I'd send it to Dawn because you're the contact person.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and I would
Yeah.
ask what it is. I mean, I can put something together, but he responds everything back to you, anyways, is what
Yeah.
it is.
So if you just, I guess, tell me what you're looking for and then I
yeah,
can
well,
copy.
Well, and I wouldn't even limit. I would just say some generalized
that's why I said
school
staff.
information. Yeah, generalized information.
thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
I'm
That was
just gonna say,
something-
I think we've been talking about adults and kids and their opinion of Wyndham and their education down there. But I think it would be interesting if we could get some high school kids in here to talk to us. No?
They're welcome to come. I
But
mean,
somebody-
next meeting.
Somebody else had said that, and half of them don't even know, and not that they don't know what's going on. I think they got so much other stuff going on that this just isn't one of their priorities.
No, I'm sure of that. This is,
What about the student member of the school board?
A Wyndham resident?
I don't.
Is she
Ayana?
a
Student
Wyndham
member,
resident?
Wyndham resident?
No, she actually lives in Raymond.
Looks like she's a Raymond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Beth, oh my God, what's Beth's last name? Her mom. She's a Spanish teacher too.
Oh, Bouvier?
No, yeah, Beth Bouvier is her mom. And she lives here, yeah.
That could give us an input on.
I remember when Beth Bouvier was a baby.
She'll like you.
There you go again, aging yourself.
Oh, really? Wow. Anything else?
Did you?
Diana? Public comment? Yeah, yeah. Or just grab the mic, either one. You can.
Diana Freusling.
Daggett Drive. I was looking for numbers, but as you all spoke, it sounds like that's going to happen, because I came to the budget and finance meeting you had, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I think everybody's waiting for information. You know, this has been going on for months and months and months, and we're kind of waiting for information. So to have any intelligent public discussions, we need something to go by. So if you're going to ask people to vote, well, we need to be educated. So we're kind of waiting for budgets and some information. And I realize a budget can't be exact, but you have to submit one to the state if you want to proceed. The budget you have to do that for the state. It's in the statute. So I think everybody would understand if you preface it by, of course, this isn't exact and we've tried to cover all bases, but there has to be something for us to look at.
Yep.
And tell me if I'm wrong, because that sounds like what you guys been doing. I think there was a conscious effort that when the school committee put this proposal out that we voted on last night, and I think we said we should wait until that happens. So I think I know there's been things in the background too, but I don't want it to sound so harsh, like, what have you guys been doing for months and months?
I mean, we
kinda waited
have,
till last night.
yeah, I mean, we have spreadsheets and stuff with preliminary numbers on it,
Yeah.
but they need to be fine tuned.
You threw out some,
Huh.
but there was never a,
No, because we decided, why don't we just wait and see what happens with this vote before we proceed?
Yeah, that was conscious.
Yeah, so,
I think coming into this vote tonight, I think some of us were thinking differently last night than we were tonight, because the more that you hear from people, the more that you think things through. I think that's why tonight it's kind of different, do you know what I mean? Because I think we're looking at a lot of different avenues as to why we're here, but yeah, you and I are definitely on the same page. I really think people just need to see something. They're gonna ask to see something.
We gotta do the follow-through.
Yeah.
Inform them and have them make a decision.
It means more meetings, Joe.
can't wait. All right,
At least you
so,
got your vacation out of the way.
yeah, maybe I'll take another one.
No, Mike's already taken his 2 years. Mine's at the end of May.
All right, so we're gonna meet again on the 16th,
Yeah, 6:30 here.
6:30 here.
The staffing, right?
I think we just need a motion to adjourn, don't you?
And then, let's continue to work on these numbers, and I don't know how much we can fine tune them, but make a couple of phone calls, see what people, those stumbling blocks that people didn't realize they were gonna pay for.
Joe,
Yep.
would it be helpful if I called the area schools and found out if there would be even room for Raymond kids in 2 years? Or
I
is
mean-
that too early?
You can, I mean, it's a simple phone call, but,
Yeah.
you know.
I think people are gonna take our kids. I don't think that's gonna be an issue. I know we have to have one signed. I really do, and I don't wanna be arrogant with that whole thing, but I just,
They have room, they won't.
I would think that because
They
it's
have a
money.
humongous high school.
Who does?
Wyndham.
Wyndham is
With a humongous high school.
I think they're
That's
the
not
only
fault.
ones who have the capacity right now, honestly.
They would take us.
Right. I don't see any other, I don't see Brenda Gloucester, and I don't see Poland as having the capacity to take
Well, we
our
also know that
kids.
during Tag Poland shut us off at one point, because
Yeah.
they were full,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and then they
Right.
reopened.
Right, and the
They
same with
weren't even
Gray.
taking they were only taking siblings once, and then they stopped
Yeah.
taking siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same with Gray. Gray's in
I
that
think
same
Lang's been in
situation.
that position historically too,
So-
at times, yeah.
So, yeah, your option is pretty much Wyndham. I mean, unless
Cycling.
Lake Region.
Oh,
Well, I mean, you're gonna have every option on the
That's right.
table.
We can put them on the bus, the
Yeah.
Lake Region bus.
hey, that would save on transportation. $30.
Hey, they do it in Portland.
Because it's downhill.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.